Hello and welcome to the show. Thanks for listening. I'm Jack Frey. Today some topics will be Tom Brady. Is he the greatest of all time? I'll have a top 10 list from my brother and we will argue about it. Guess what? He's not. Gronkowski, his retirement, what it means for the Patriots, a contract for DeMarcus Lawrence and the Dallas Cowboys, Russell Wilson requesting a new contract by April 15th, and some other things. Thanks for listening. Today, let me talk about one thing first. Rob Gronkowski is retiring. He's chosen to do so 3 months after the Super Bowl. He is arguably the best tight end of all time. Why, do you ask? Is he the best of all time after only playing 9 seasons and not even playing every game? Well, if you look at the numbers and a lot of the intangibles of what he does, like blocking, he almost notably has the best qualities of a tight end ever. He can make catches, make runs, run people over, and sometimes when he's out there on his own, he can actually outrun some guys. Well, he used to, at least. Here's the other 8 Hall of Fame tight ends. Mike Ditka, John Mackey, Jackie Smith, Kellen Winslow, Ozzie Newsome, Dave Casper, Charlie Sanders, and of course, the great Shannon Sharpe. The only person on that list I could probably argue is better overall would be Shannon Sharpe, or maybe even Kellen Winslow. But if you look at the numbers, Gronkowski is better. In his career, he has 521 catches, 7,861 yards, and 79 TDs. It's not the most of all time, but in a 9 season, it is the best rate. Let's look at his yards per game. 68.4 yards per game. The next highest is Kellen Winslow at 61.8 yards per game. That's almost 7 yards per game less. And in third place is Tony Gonzalez with 56 yards per game. That is over 12 yards less per game than Gronkowski. Some would argue that Tony Gonzalez is the greatest tight end of all time. But Gronkowski caught 12 yards more per game. That's pretty impressive. In the playoffs, Gronkowski has the most targets of all time with 130 among tight ends. The second highest is 101 by Shannon Sharpe. Receptions in the playoffs, Gronkowski has 84. The next highest, 64, by Dallas Clark. In yards in the playoffs, 1,163 yards, Gronk. The next highest, 847 by Dallas Clark. Touchdowns, 12 for Gronkowski. The next highest is 7, in a tie with Casper and Vernon Davis. So, in the playoffs, he's obviously the best of all time, obviously. Regular season, that's arguable. But if you spread it out proportionally, he has pretty great numbers. In 16 postseason games, Gronkowski has 81 catches, 1,163 yards, and 12 TDs. That's one season. That's a pretty darn good season. Now, think about it this way. Those 16 postseason games are against postseason teams. So you're talking about the best of the best, not, the Miami Dolphins on a Sunday morning. It's big teams like the Denver Broncos on a Sunday night. So Gronkowski retired, and only Jerry Rice and Randy Moss had more touchdown catches before the age of 30. Think about that. That might put in perspective his career, albeit short, but great. Is Gronkowski the best tight end of all time? Still debatable, and in the future, there may be someone else who passes him up. I still like Tony Gonzalez probably as the best of all time, but Tony Gonzalez didn't really have a postseason. He got there a few times, but didn't really have a chance to shine. Russell Wilson. He has requested a new contract with a deadline of April 15th. What does that mean for the Seattle Seahawks? Well, you better pay him, or else someone else is going to get him, and In my opinion, Russell Wilson is the best thing that's ever happened to Seattle. I mean, Pete Carroll's a great coach, but without Russell Wilson, would they be anywhere? Probably not. So Russell Wilson's probably going to get $35 million or so per year. Is he worth it? Absolutely. Would any other team pay him that? Probably. It would be extremely entertaining to see him go to another team. Is that possible? I don't know. But I think the Seattle Seahawks have moved from player-friendly, loose clubhouse to more of a tight ship. They're backing their quarterback and not their defensive players who had to talk out against things and, like the Colin Kaepernick saga with the national anthem stuff. Thank goodness that's over. Or is it? I hope it is. Let me ask you this. Who's better, DeMarcus Lawrence or Khalil Mack? Do we have to think about that at all? I mean, it's obviously Khalil Mack. He completely changed the makeup of the Chicago Bears. If you take him off the Bears, they are not nearly as good on defense. But if you take DeMarcus Lawrence off the Cowboys, does that make as big of an impact? I don't think so. So why is DeMarcus Lawrence new contract of 5 years, $105 million, $65 million guaranteed more than Mack? Why has DeMarcus Lawrence gotten the most money ever in the first year of his contract for a defensive end? Well, this is kind of like a trend, and I've noticed it pretty apparently over the last few years, especially with the Cousins contract in Minnesota. Like, hello, he's not even close to worth that much money, but in this day and age, the next player gets the most money, regardless of if he's good or not. Can we please give players the most money who are the best players? I am getting so tired of these terrible contracts going out to mediocre players getting paid more than the best of the best. No one would argue that DeMarcus Lawrence is better than Khalil Mack. No one would argue that Cousins is better than, I don't know, somebody like Tom Brady. But that's a different story because Tom Brady's willing to take less money so he can win more, which is an ideal point of view if you ask me. One of the reasons the Patriots are still good. Look at what Aaron Rodgers did. He took all that money and he completely handcuffed the Packers. Now, I believe the Packers will have a better season this year, and the Bears will probably take a step back. That division's a little bit more open. We all know where the Lions are going to finish. We'll see how the Vikings do, which will prove whether Cousins is worth it or not, which I don't think he is. But these contracts are just ridiculous, and I almost can't take it anymore. Now, the contract, 5 years, $105 million, okay, I get it. 5 years, $105, that's not too bad. What is it, $21 million a year roughly? But that's like quarterback money. There's a lot of quarterbacks that are good in this league are not making that much money. Does DeMarcus Lawrence deserve that much money? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. It will only be seen after his performance. Are these players being paid for what they've done, what they're doing, or what they can do? And I'd like to think it's a combination of all three, but we may never find out for sure. Once again, yes, you should get paid for what you've done, and you should also get paid for what you can do. You look at baseball and these massive 13-year, $330 million contracts, well, they're obviously not going to be played out to their value. So at least the NFL is ahead of the curve when it comes to that. But these players' careers get end in an instant. These contracts are just ginormous, and I really wish the league would police it a little bit better, but it seems to me that the players have way too much power and they can demand these contracts. Now, Russell Wilson should get the money that he deserves, but he's playing quarterback, and that's the one position in just about all of sports that can dictate the entire season, the entire game. How many teams have won a Super Bowl without a great quarterback? Not that many. You know, like the Ravens with Trent Dilfer, they won the Super Bowl. That was the most impressive defense I've ever seen. maybe minus the 85 Bears. I've had too much. I've had just too much of this stuff. So let me list the top 10 quarterbacks of all time according to Shawn Frey. Number 10, Steve Young. He was probably my favorite player of all time. All hustle, talent. He was a lefty, which made it real fun, and he made some great plays. Number 9, John Elway. Oh, he was great, and he went to a lot of Super Bowls. He was a really good player. Probably had the best exit of any quarterback of all time. 2 in a row, I'm done, drop the mic. Johnny Unitas, only player on this list I never saw play. He is called Johnny Football. Dan Marino, one of the best passers, pure passers of all time. I did get to watch him as a youngster, and he was great. Brett Favre, the gunslinger. He would pass himself in and out of trouble. Joe Montana, 5th? Are you serious? Number 5? Joe Montana, 4-0 in Super Bowls. Number 5? Okay. Aaron Rodgers, number 4. Ahead of Joe Montana? Are you kidding me? What the heck's going on here? Number 3, Tom Brady. Wait a second. Tom Brady is not number 1. Number 2, Drew Brees. Wait a second. Drew Brees is ahead of Tom Brady. He only has 1 ring. And number 1, Peyton Manning, the greatest quarterback of all time. We'll have to talk about that a little bit, shall we? Here's Chrissy with the news.
Duke Zion Williamson named the 2019 Naismith Award winner over Ja Morant. He missed 5+ games due to a knee injury this college basketball season. That still wasn't enough for anyone to catch him in the Player of the Year race. The Atlanta Tip-Off Club named Williamson the recipient of the 2019 honor on Sunday. He won the award over Murray State's Ja Morant, Tennessee's Grant Williams, and Gonzaga Hachimura. Williamson is the 8th Duke player to take home the Player of the Year honors, and first since J.J. Redick in 2006. He's the 3rd freshman ever to take home the award regularly given to upperclassmen, joining both Kevin Durant and Anthony Davis.
Well, those are a couple of really good players. The only 2 freshmen to ever win it. You know, I think he obviously deserves it. He had the most impact, and look at all the revenue that the NCAA is getting because of him. I've watched more college basketball this year than I have in the last 10 years. It's been incredible.
Yes, I'm very excited to continue to watch him grow and see what he does going forward. And in other news, the Golden State Warriors hope to mix in some current-day significance amid the nostalgia Sunday night when they invite the Los Angeles Clippers for a party that otherwise will go down as their final regular season game ever at Oracle Arena in Oakland.
Man, I've been to that arena and I've seen a Warriors game there, as have you, and it is one of the best places to enjoy a game. I've had a lot of fun with that team over the years there, but I'm really excited to see how that new stadium opens up in San Francisco.
Yeah, they have a lot of history. The Warriors, who moved from Philadelphia to San Francisco in 1962 and then Oakland in 1971, are scheduled to return to San Francisco in the still under construction downtown Chase Center next season. The Warriors have clinched their spot this postseason. On Sunday, they have an opportunity to assure themselves the home court advantage through the Western Conference portion of the playoffs with a win that would clinch the number 1 seed. The Warriors need just one more win or one Denver Nuggets loss to claim that top spot in the West, entering the playoffs for the 4th time in the past 5 years.
I'm pretty sure that Golden State's going to get the 1st seed. If they don't, it would be interesting to see them in the 2nd seed, but I don't see anybody beating them on the way to the NBA Finals. What do you think is in store for the Warriors this playoffs?
I think it's pretty safe to say that they're going to win. They have such a great team and they work well together, and it doesn't matter who's off that night, somebody else is always on, and who knows, maybe Iguodala can come back and shine a little bit and get that MVP status.
I'm sure he will. In the playoffs, he's always a great performer, and we all know that the Warriors are just basically a super team, so there's really no team I can see beating them on the way there. It should be really fun.
Can't wait to watch this go down.
That's Chrissy with the news. My next guest is Shawn Frey. He's my brother. He lives in the Bay Area. Shawn, how you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm not bad, and I really wanted to talk to you about the Raiders since you're a Raiders fan. I don't know how that happened growing up in a 49ers family, but Oakland, what do you think of what John Gruden is doing?
Well, first of all, I found it questionable. I mean, I'm going back to when he first got hired, but I found it questionable how he was talking about going back to '98 and going back to old times. And I get he hadn't coached a long time, but like you gotta, get with the program. You gotta do what works presently, not what worked a long time ago.
So what you're saying is, you need to adapt and get with the times. But do you think that Gruden's coaching prowess can kind of like skip a generation with going from back when he was a coach to the 10 years he wasn't to now?
I definitely think he could. Look at Dick Vermeil. He stopped coaching for, 14 years, and he coached the Rams to a Super Bowl, so it is possible. I could definitely see him working it out.
Do you like the trades? Do you like the Khalil Mack trade? Do you like the Amari Cooper trade? And do you like the Antonio Brown signing?
I do like the Antonio Brown signing. They definitely won that end of the deal for sure. He is the best receiver in the NFL, although some may argue it's Julio Jones, but it is Antonio Brown in my opinion. My only problem with Antonio Brown is that he does seem to be kind of a head case, kind of an attention whore, but maybe with somebody like John Gruden who, gets in your face and lets you know, hey, get in line and focus on your job, maybe Antonio Brown might actually be set straight.
That's a good point, because in Pittsburgh, Tomlin has always been a player's coach and kind of let the guys do whatever they want to. And maybe Antonio Brown needs more of an authoritative figure to get him back on track. Regardless, he's got great numbers no matter what. We'll see how he does with Derek Carr. What do you think about the Khalil Mack trade? Did you think the Raiders made out pretty well on that?
I don't think so. I personally don't think they really benefit from that trade at all. I mean, unless maybe they freed up some salary cap space, which might have given room for Antonio Brown. So maybe it was more of a long-term thing, but at least at the time, I didn't like the decision. And so far, I haven't seen it pan out.
A report came out that the metrics of trades, they have an award every year at this conference in Las Vegas, and they gave out the best transaction of the season with the Khalil Mack trade. So that might say, well, part of the reason I think is probably because he was so darn expensive, and Gruden knew that if he signed Khalil Mack to a contract that most quarterbacks don't get, that it would handcuff him in building the rest of his team. So that's probably why he got a really good deal there with a couple of first-round picks. We won't really know what the trade value is until after those picks are made and those players are developed, I think. What about Amari Cooper? Did you like how they got a first-round pick from the Cowboys for him?
It is nice they got a first-round pick from the Cowboys. The thing is that first-round pick's going to be kind of later in the draft because, it's the Cowboys. They improved a lot once they got him, and I really think the Cowboys got the better end of the deal. Amari Cooper has many years left to go. He was doing great for the Raiders. Perhaps maybe because they got Antonio Brown that makes up for it.
Perhaps, maybe. They got Tyrell Williams from the Chargers, who was actually a really good option for Phillip Rivers last year, so that should be a pretty good 1-2 punch. Now, I've got a bone to pick with you, Shawn. Let's talk about your top 10 list of quarterbacks. And do you have that in front of you?
I do.
Okay, so I want to focus on everything from number 5 down. Number 5, you have Joe Montana. Number 4, you have Aaron Rodgers. Number 3, you have Tom Brady. Number 2, you have Drew Brees. And number 1, greatest quarterback of all time, you have Peyton Manning. Explain yourself.
Well, I firmly believe Peyton Manning is the greatest of all time because given the circumstances, considering the Colts really, as a team, even when he was there, they had a lot of missteps, and a lot of time Peyton Manning kind of had to do all the work himself. So it's kind of expected that he wouldn't actually win every Super Bowl or win so many like Tom Brady would. Tom Brady was able to do so because he's a damn good quarterback as well. I have him at number 3, but it wasn't all him. He always had a really amazing team around him, and obviously Bill Belichick to coach him. Peyton Manning, he had Tony Dungy at one point, sure, but after that, the coaches he had were not nearly as good. They were good, but not anywhere close to Tony Dungy level.
So, What are you basing your greatness off of? You're basing your greatness off the team that surrounded the player?
Well, no, not specifically. Peyton Manning does have the most touchdown passes of all time. He has the most single-season touchdown passes. And he did that, the 55 touchdown passes with the Broncos, while not having really any kind of Hall of Fame receivers at all. I mean, look at Demarcus Thomas now. He's not nearly as good without Peyton Manning. So clearly it was because of Peyton Manning that he actually was good.
I'm looking at the stats right here, right now. If you combine the regular season statistics with the postseason statistics, Brady is better overall in every stat. Passing yards. Peyton Manning, all time, this is including the playoffs, has 79,279 passing yards. Brady has 81,693. That's almost 2,500 passing yards more than Manning. Touchdowns. Manning has 579. Brady has 590. Brady has 11 touchdowns more than Peyton Manning. Interceptions. Manning has 276. Brady has 205. Manning has 71 more interceptions than Tom Brady. And sacks. Manning was sacked only 343 times in his career, but Brady was sacked 539 times in his career, 196 more times than Manning was sacked. All these stats, to me, show that Brady is an overall better player. What say you?
Well, you do definitely prove valid points, but as many have said, offensive lines do make better teams, at least better offenses. I will admit Peyton Manning definitely has been the beneficiary of great offensive lines, but Tom Brady has so many opportunities because of the team he plays for, and because even if he did something wrong, which doesn't happen often, of course, the defense often can bail him out anyways. Peyton Manning, he's never had a good defense with him except his later years with the Broncos.
What I'm hearing from you, Shawn, is your comparison of quarterbacks isn't their personal statistics. It's who that they played with got them those statistics. Am I correct?
Obviously, I got to give the quarterbacks some credit themselves. I mean, if they weren't good enough, it wouldn't matter who their supporting cast is. I mean, as I stated, Peyton Manning does have the most TDs of all time, and that's
only during the regular season. If you combine their playoff stats, which is their entire career, Tom Brady has 11 more TDs than Peyton Manning.
That's true, but didn't Tom Brady play a lot more playoff games than Peyton Manning? I mean, that gives him more chances to throw more touchdowns.
Of course, he played a lot more playoff games, but at the same time, that's still part of the career. And if you play more games, don't you get tired faster?
Well, I'm not a professional athlete, so I don't know how they feel about that, but I guess so.
Look at LeBron this year. He's out of gas.
That's true.
Throwing out statistics, especially regular season statistics, and you throw out who they played with, who has accomplished more in their career?
In that regard, Tom Brady did accomplish more because of the Super Bowl rings, but Peyton Manning has won more MVP awards, which is an individual achievement, and I think individual achievements reflects better on an individual player's performance than the team around him.
Yes, regular season MVPs are extremely important, and they do a tribute to greatness. But if you look at anyone's personal opinion of greatness in any sport, it's championships. You cannot be great without winning championships.
Peyton Manning does have 2 championships.
And Breeze has 1. But Tom Brady has 6. That's 3 times more than Peyton Manning.
That is 3 times more than Peyton Manning, that's for sure. But as I stated, he didn't achieve all 6 of them by himself.
Correct. It's a team game. You can't achieve them all by themselves. And we're not speaking hypothetically on these players. If Tom Brady was on the Colts and Peyton Manning was on the Patriots, would they have the exact same amount of rings? You can't say that.
Probably not.
You can't say because it's hypothetical. But
right.
Look at the Super Bowl against the Falcons. They were down 28-3 and they won.
A lot of people like to argue the Falcons really screwed up though. I mean, they did have an opportunity to run the ball when they had the lead to get in field goal range and actually be ahead by 28 if they made that field goal, and they didn't actually do that.
That's true. That's a bad decision right there. But the quarterback Tom Brady made the comeback. 28-3. The Falcons didn't score those points for the Patriots. The Patriots scored them on the Falcons.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that. That was, I believe that's actually the greatest Super Bowl comeback of all time, and Tom Brady deserves a lot of credit for that, and so does the rest of the Patriots team for working together and maintaining a lot of perseverance throughout, both offense and defense, because that Falcons offense was no joke. The defense found a way to stop letting him from scoring.
Okay, well, if you could change anything about your top 10 list, particularly the top 5, what would it be?
For the top 5, I feel pretty confident about my top 5. I mean, I got Aaron Rodgers way up there because his passer rating is really fantastic, and he just is always good no matter who he has with them. Drew Brees up there because he now has the most passing yards of all time. Check out Peyton Manning's video when he responds to it. It's hilarious. What would I change?
Would you at least?
Some might argue that Drew Brees is actually the greatest QB of all time. He does get the short end of the stick a lot with the Saints teams he's on, yet he's most of the time leading the league in passing.
There's no way you would put Tom Brady in front of Drew Brees or Peyton Manning?
Well, give it some time. Maybe I might if...
What would it take for Tom Brady to be the number 1 quarterback of all time on your list?
That's actually a good question.
Would he have to win 10 Super Bowls?
Well, no. I mean... That would be, I don't think anybody's ever going to win 10. He's probably going to retire before then. But I will say this, Tom Brady is close on my list. He is 3, he's behind 2 guys, but it's actually a very, very, very close. If he could surpass Peyton Manning in all his stats, he could, but then I could argue that he played longer than Peyton Manning to get to that point. So I'm not exactly sure specifically what Tom Brady would have to do, in my personal opinion, to be number 1 on the list.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying it's impossible. I could put him up there by the time his career's over.
I would have Tom Brady number 1 overall. Mm-hmm. I would have Joe Montana number 2 overall. I would have Peyton Manning number 3 overall. I would have Drew Brees, number 4 overall. I'm not sure where I would put Aaron Rodgers on this list, but 1, 2, 3, 4, that's, Brady, Montana, Manning, and then Brees. That's where I have it, and it's actually where most people do have it. Some people put Manning ahead of Montana, but in my opinion, greatness is championships. Regardless of how good your team was, the greatest player on the greatest team is still the greatest player, regardless of what team he's on. Other news, Gronkowski has retired. He only played 9 seasons. Do you think he's the greatest tight end of all time?
I actually really wish he could play longer, because honestly, when he doesn't get injured, he is incredible to watch. He makes tight ends look way better than the best receivers. He's just that good. I would pick Gronk over a number of wide receivers if I was to start a fantasy team.
Right.
I actually think if Gronk could stay healthy, he would be the greatest tight end of all time.
My opinion is Tony Gonzalez is the greatest tight end of all time. Of course, he's not in the Hall of Fame yet, but
he will be. He
will be this year, I believe. The only reason why he's better is because over a long period of his career, he's done more consistently. But, again, you can make the argument that Gronk is the best of all time. He just had a shorter career. And if you look at his playoff numbers, he's got an entire another season. He's played 16 playoff games. So that's an entire another season for him to put down the stats. And his playoff statistics are out of this world. And he actually leads almost every tight end in every statistical category in the playoffs. It's very arguable on who is the greatest of all time. Of course, you've got Shannon Sharp, and you've got Kellen Winslow, and eventually Antonio Gates. So there's a lot of guys in this list that could be named the greatest of all time. I think probably one of the funnest players of all time at the position is definitely going to be Gronk. Now, if you add in blocking skills to the category of greatest of all time, you might have to give it to Gronk because he mauls guys. And just this season was a great example of the way that he was used. He wasn't used in an offensive ball-catching situation until like the last 2 games of the year, the AFC Championship and then the Super Bowl. He was just a blocker for almost the whole season, and he did a really great job. And I don't think Tony Gonzalez or Shannon Sharpe or Winslow or Gates ever had that kind of blocking prowess.
I fully agree, because as a Raiders fan, I've seen him take on the Chargers a lot, and I don't even remember seeing Antonio Gates block for Phillip Rivers before. I mean, I'm sure he has, but I just don't remember seeing it, so it's definitely a lot more common for the Gronk.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's all we have for today. I definitely have to agree to disagree with you about your top 10 list of quarterbacks of all times, but that's okay because this is just sports talk, and that's what we do. We talk about sports.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Shawn, for coming on the show, and we'll have to have you again after the draft to talk about that, and we'll see you again.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Bye-bye. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening to the show. I really appreciate you stopping by. If you liked the show, please like and subscribe. Add your comments below if you want to see me improve it in any sort of way. Just put in your 2 cents. Sounds and music was provided by Ben Sounds. Thank you very much. Goodbye.